Where's the beef? That's what many are asking as beef prices continue to climb to new highs. The latest inflation data shows the cost of a roast increasing 18% from last year. So to bring down prices, President Trump reportedly plans on quadrupling beef imports from Argentina. And White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt defended the move. Oh, but ranchers are not happy.
We've kind of seen a record high right now. The big thing is bringing beef in from somewhere else. I'd rather see it be an American-made product.
We import more than they import from us. If he wants to lower the price of beef, then that's a direct assault on ranchers. Consumers are demanding our product. They love our product. We're passing that message on to the president to say, hey, don't mess with the beef market right now. Let's not have government interference.
America just handed Argentina $40 billion. And what are we getting in return? Toxic beef.
We're importing beef from a country with a history of foot and mouth disease, a virus so contagious it could wipe out American livestock in weeks. At the same time, sending them $40 billion in aid. American ranchers, the ones who voted for protection, who believed in America first, who finally started making decent money after decades, are watching their market get flooded with foreign beef. The same people who demanded border security and economic nationalism are now getting crushed by the very policies they supported. Welcome to Mind Mirror. Today we're unpacking the beef import disaster, where beliefs meet consequences and nobody escapes unscathed. Let's get into it.
America just handed Argentina $40 billion. And what are we getting in return? Toxic beef. God damn! That's right. The Trump administration is looking to buy beef from Argentina, a country with a long, dirty history of foot and mouth disease, a virus so contagious it could wipe out U.S. livestock overnight.
I beg your pardon?
Even the National Cattlemen's Beef Association warned that Argentina's history of this disease could decimate American herds.
Hold up. $40 billion in aid, and we're importing their potentially diseased beef? That's not economics, that's insanity. Look, trade agreements come with strings attached. I get that. But when the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is literally warning about foot and mouth disease, maybe that's a sign to pump the brakes? One outbreak in the US could trigger hundreds of billions in losses, mass culling, export bans, total market collapse, all to shave $1 off your grocery bill. The risk-reward here is completely backwards. You're gambling your entire domestic livestock industry on short-term price relief. That's not strategy. That's Russian roulette with the food supply. And for ranchers watching this, you invested everything. Weathered droughts, survived low prices, finally hit profitability. Now your market's getting sacrificed so someone else can look like they're solving inflation.
But get this. Newsweek reported that even U.S. officials admitted those imports could be impacted by a foot and mouth disease issue.
Come on, man!
And U.S. ranchers are furious. They're saying this isn't just about one disease, it's about herd health overall and how foreign beef could impact our food supply. Last part's the most important. So let's get this straight. We send them $40 billion and they send back beef that could destroy our own farmers? America's being played again. We're bankrolling countries that can't even control livestock disease while our own ranchers are getting pushed aside? If that sounds insane to you, share this right now, because your next burger might come with a side of foot and mouth disease.
Trump is importing Argentinian beef just for us citizens because he does not like that it costs too much for American beef. Now, the American farmers are real upset about this because they voted for Trump and he sold the market.
Right there. They voted for this, and he sold the market. Nobody forced these ranchers to support these policies. They chose it, believed in it, campaigned for it. And I'm not trying to pile on, but let's be adults about this. When you vote based on slogans instead of understanding how markets actually function, surprises are inevitable. You can't cheer for deals and then act shocked when those deals don't include you. Farming isn't insulated from global economics. Never has been. You can't demand free markets when you're winning and beg for protection when you're losing. Economics doesn't care about your feelings. But here's the brutal part. These ranchers genuinely believed they'd be protected. They bought the narrative. And now they're staring down imports that could crater everything they've built. That's not just disappointing. That's what happens when loyalty to an idea blinds you to how the actual machinery works.
Wow, the world has accomplished something. MAGA and Donald Trump have delivered a self-own. That's right, a self-own today by admitting that they need to bring in beef from Argentina to lower your prices. That's right, that's an admission of failure. Because let's face it, the whole idea behind the tariff policy was to increase the price of imported goods coming in that were cheap and kept the market stabilized and kept it low cost where it was affordable for ordinary Americans and not just the wealthy. But it was meant and designed to artificially raise their prices so the American companies could be competitive against them instead of being undercut and being risked.
Bingo. The entire tariff playbook was about making American products competitive by raising import costs. That was the whole point. So importing cheaper beef to undercut your own ranchers, that's a confession that the strategy failed. You can't celebrate protectionism while simultaneously doing the opposite. Either tariffs work and domestic prices remain sustainable, or they don't work and you need cheap imports to control costs. But claiming both at once, that's not policy. That's contradiction disguised as action. This is what kills me about economic populism. It sounds incredible in rallies. Protect American jobs, bring back industry. Then reality shows up, and suddenly the people you promised to protect become acceptable losses. For ranchers, this has to be devastating. You believed your sector would be prioritized. You restructured around that belief, and now you're collateral damage in someone's desperate attempt to lower grocery prices before the next election cycle.
So here you go. We're now finding out that the business savvy wasn't there. You know, a guy that has a background in real estate doesn't understand domestic production, imports, exports, and manufacturing. What a goddamn shocker. But hey, you know what? This is an admission of failure. And usually, when you admit that you've either failed or have a problem, that is your first step in the road to recovery. So I congratulate you, Donald. You have finally admitted that you failed, and you're trying to recover. Hey, I can't knock anybody for trying to do better for themselves. Congratulations.
You know what? There's something to this take. Admitting failure is the first step to recovery. Because when policy isn't delivering, you pivot. You don't keep driving off the cliff just to avoid admitting you took a wrong turn. And if importing beef prevents grocery prices from completely spiraling, there's a case for it. But recovery for who? Consumers might save a few dollars on ground beef. Meanwhile, ranchers are watching their margins evaporate in real time. That's the ugly math of economics. Sometimes helping one group means destroying another. You can lower prices for families struggling at checkout, or you can protect ranchers' livelihoods. Doing both simultaneously when global markets are in play, nearly impossible. So yeah, admitting the original approach failed is better than denial. But step 2 needs to include actual support for the people getting crushed. Otherwise, this isn't recovery. It's just redistributing who gets hurt, while calling it progress.
U.S. farmers really did themselves a number when they voted for Donald Trump. You would think that they'd be smarter, considering that they had already gone through 4 years of his administration. That was no help to them whatsoever. Well, now that they went and voted this fucking clown in...
This is raw, and I understand the anger. When you've been dismissed or attacked by a political movement, watching that movement's supporters face consequences feels like karma. But let me push back slightly. Ranchers made bad political calculations. That's undeniable. But we can acknowledge that without celebrating their destruction. These are real families losing farms that have existed for generations. Maybe they didn't think through how policies would affect others. Maybe they prioritized their own economic anxiety and ignored warning signs. That's human. That's flawed. But it doesn't mean total ruin is deserved. The smarter play? Use this as evidence. Remember when experts warned tariffs would backfire? Remember when economists said this would hurt everyone? This is what we meant, because the goal isn't revenge. It's building a country where people understand economic cause and effect, even when it's complex, even when it's boring, even when it doesn't fit on a hat.
Their farms are on the verge of being gone forever. And I am talking about farms that have been in families for generations. But it's really hard to sympathize with these people because they really gave no fucks about me or people of color or LGBTQ. So at this point, I really don't give a fuck about them either. And to add insult to injury, Donald Trump just announced that he is going to be getting beef for our U.S. citizens from Argentina, not the U.S. farmers.
President loves our ranchers and he also loves American consumers, and he wants to do right by both.
Rural America was pretty dang good to President Trump. And it just hurt that, you know, for a few pennies, you're going to sell us out.
That line cuts deep. Rural America was good to him, and for a few pennies they're going to sell us out. Political alliances only matter when they're convenient. The second there's tension between supporting your base and appeasing a different group, loyalty evaporates. Ranchers believed they had someone fighting for them, someone who understood rural struggles, who'd protect them against coastal elites and foreign competition. But when the choice came down to their profits versus consumer prices, they got tossed overboard. Now, maybe that's the correct policy decision. Maybe affordable beef for 330 million people outweighs protecting rancher margins. But if that's the calculation, be honest about it. Don't pretend you're championing rural America while simultaneously destroying their primary income. This isn't about a few pennies. It's about trust, about being told you matter, then watching actions prove you don't. And once that trust breaks, it doesn't heal.
It was recently reported that we will start importing beef from Argentina. I think this is probably a mistake, and it doesn't really get to the root cause of the problem of why we have a short supply in beef. And there are a number of factors for sure, one of them being severe drought that has hurt the herd, but also a lot of young ranchers not entering the business. A lot of folks are retiring, and so that's limiting the herd growth. In addition, we're losing 2 million acres of grasslands a year, and this is going to limit the amount of acreage that we have to grow beef on. So there's a lot of areas we could focus on building our national herd back besides just this band-aid of importing cheap beef from other countries.
Finally, someone talking about actual solutions instead of band-aids. Importing cheap beef doesn't fix anything structural. 2 million acres of grassland disappearing annually. Young people avoiding ranching entirely. Climate pressures shrinking herds. These are the real crises, and foreign meat does nothing to address them. Here's why this matters long-term. Quick fixes create permanent dependencies. Once you rely on imports to stabilize prices, you kill the incentive to rebuild domestic capacity. Why would anyone invest in American ranching when Argentina can undercut them indefinitely? But what happens when that supply chain breaks? Disease outbreak, trade dispute, natural disaster. Suddenly you're vulnerable in ways you never were with robust domestic production. Mandatory country of origin labeling? Supporting regenerative agriculture? Incentivizing young ranchers with loan programs? Those solve problems. Importing beef? That's just delaying the reckoning and hoping future generations deal with the fallout.
I think one way we can do that is have something known as mandatory country of origin labeling. This helps me as an American rancher distinguish my product as raised in America. Fact is now consumers have no clue if it can say product of USA, but that means nothing. So we need to fix that. We also need to promote regenerative farmers and ranchers. These are the folks that are using the methods that help restore grasslands, help restore biodiversity, and help create the real health of where we can expand herds and have more animals grazing on American grasslands. So a few other opportunities that we could use, none of them which include importing cheap beef. I don't think this is good for America's national security. I don't think it's good for American national health. So let's support American family farms and ranches and purchase American beef that you know was raised here.
Everybody's wound up today because Trump says we're going to import all this beef from Argentina. We're going to lower our beef prices because the beef's too expensive here. And I thought I'd throw my 2 cents in. First of all, it's not really a new thing to import beef. We've imported beef in this country for a long time. What is new, however, is the government getting involved because of the prices and saying the beef prices are too high. We're going to make a deal. We're going to buy a bunch of beef from Argentina, and we're going to undercut the American farmers and ranchers who are finally making some decent money. And that's just, it's a socialist mindset, if you ask me.
That's a socialist mindset. And honestly, he's got a point. Government stepping in to manipulate prices because they're too high? That's textbook market intervention. The exact opposite of free market capitalism. Here's the irony dripping from this situation. People who built entire identities around opposing government overreach are watching their government artificially suppress prices by flooding markets with imports. That's not capitalism. That's central planning with better branding. Look, I'm not saying intervention is always wrong. Markets fail. Sometimes correction is necessary. But you can't have it both ways. Can't demand small government when it suits you. then expect big government rescue when things go sideways. For ranchers, this is nightmare territory. They're finally profitable after years of struggle, and their government decides those profits are politically inconvenient. That's not free market economics. That's picking winners and losers. And this time, ranchers drew the short straw.
That's not what I've grown up thinking as an American market, supply and demand. Where did that go?
Picture this. You're a cattle rancher in the United States of America, and you just get word that Donald Trump is going to quadruple the amount of imports of beef coming from Argentina. Why? Because he's trying to help their country. Well, he's already given them $20 billion. He's looking at giving them another $20 billion in aid, financial aid, while he's taking away our health care. He's taking away the soybean market from farmers. He's taking away the cattle sales from cattle ranchers. And he's doing it for what? Because he likes the president of Argentina. Is that it? That's the answer? So you want to help their country while you crap all over ours?
Let me make sure I have this right. Argentina gets $20 billion, potentially another $20 billion coming. We import their beef. Meanwhile, domestic healthcare gets slashed. Soybean markets collapse. Cattle sales crater. That's not putting America first. That's not even coherent policy. International relationships matter. Trade deals matter. But when your own citizens, especially the ones who supported you most enthusiastically, are drowning, maybe prioritize them before writing billion-dollar checks abroad. From ground level, this looks like farmers and ranchers watching their livelihoods disintegrate while aid money flows overseas. That's not strategy. That's a recipe for economic devastation and generational resentment in rural communities. And the cruelest part, these communities were promised protection. They were told their concerns would take precedence. Instead, they're watching resources flow everywhere except toward them. If you're a rancher right now, you're not just angry. You're questioning whether any of it was ever real. Wait. Stop. That's it. That's the whole scam. Ranchers don't set prices. 4 corporations do. JBS, Tyson, Cargill, National Beef. They control over 80% of the entire beef market, and they've already been caught, sued for price fixing, proven in court, so prices skyrocket at checkout. Ranchers get squeezed on what they're paid, and consumers can't afford ground beef. Meanwhile, these 4 companies are posting record profits. Where do you think that money's going? And the solution from Washington? Import more beef. Give these same monopolies even more supply to control while they keep extracting from both ends of the supply chain. You want to actually fix this? Break them up. Enforce antitrust laws that already exist. Force real competition in processing. Give ranchers negotiating power and consumers transparent pricing. But that requires courage. That requires taking on corporations with armies of lobbyists. Much easier to flood the market with foreign beef, claim you're fighting inflation, and let the cartel keep printing money. This isn't incompetence. It's intentional. The system's working exactly as designed, just not for the people who actually need it.
Yeah, glad we voted you into office.
The Trump administration is warning that Argentine beef may be diseased, but they're going to import it anyway. I'm Major League, and this is news you need to know. Newsweek is reporting that Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins warned the U.S. that Argentina's beef has a foot and mouth disease problem. This as the administration pushes to import Argentine beef to bring U.S. beef prices down. Trump's plan to import beef from Argentina has faced significant criticism from both farmers, agricultural groups, and a handful of congressional Republicans. Experts also doubt that even a substantial import of Argentine beef would address domestic supply issues and bring beef prices down in any significant fashion. So Trump's plan risks undermining America's food security and bankrupting American farmers for no real benefit at all. For context here, in addition to this, Trump has also offered to bail out Argentina's government to the tune of $20 billion U.S. taxpayer dollars. A lot of Trump's critics believe that all of this is less about supporting American farmers or the people of Argentina and more about bailing out Trump's friends in the investor class. Argentina is running out of money, but it's also the world's largest debtor to the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. But I want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments and remember to click the link in my bio to follow Major League TV on Facebook.
So I'm getting asked, what about the deal with Argentina? What about it? You got a black swan, you got an elephant in the room, You got a politician that come out and says something about Argentina, and now then everybody's talking about it. Here's the deal. My opinion, and my opinion only, you're going to have the guys in Chicago to do anything they can to drop the market. Yes, they used it. It's a scare tactic, but where did they get all the heifers at overnight? How did they fill up the pastures overnight with cows? They didn't. The whole thing, ladies and gentlemen, is this right here. They can't produce enough meat to satisfy the consumers.
Wait, hold on. Can't produce enough meat to satisfy consumers? That's the argument? Because here's the thing. The U.S. isn't actually short on cattle. We have cattle. The problem is processing capacity and distribution, not herd size. And if there really was a supply crisis, why are ranchers finally making decent money for the first time in years? Supply shortages don't work that way. When supply is genuinely scarce, producers get rich. But that's not what's happening here. What's actually going on is that beef got expensive because of consolidation, because of supply chain disruptions, because of corporate pricing strategies, not because American ranches suddenly can't produce. So calling this a glitch or a bump in the road, that's dismissing a structural problem. This isn't temporary. This is what happens when you let 4 companies control 80% of processing and then try to fix it with imports instead of breaking up monopolies. You want more beef at better prices? Fix the bottleneck in processing. Support domestic producers. Don't flood the market with foreign beef and pretend you solved something.
So no, it's a glitch. It's just a bump in the road. No big deal. Cattle prices this week for replacement cattle went up. Guys, if it's that scary that fast, you probably need to sit on the sideline. You probably don't need to get in the game, because the simple fact is this right here. That's just a glitch. That's no big deal. Ain't nothing but a thing. But now then, what's going to take place is they drop the board down. Now then, those guys are going to make a buttload of money, and then it's going to go right back up. That's my personal opinion. Can I write that down as gospel? No, that's just a personal opinion. What are we doing? We're selling cattle. Cattle here, they're going to Oklahoma? Yeah, Oklahoma. It's got a truckload of cattle going to Oklahoma. We got trucks out there waiting on us. We got cattle being shipped. Guys, let me tell you something. And we got a lot of cattle. Remember our free shipping deal. We got free shipping on cattle. So if you need cattle, give us a buzz, because we got lots of cattle of small numbers. If you're looking for the small numbers, we don't always put those small numbered cattle out there, but that's just something that we do. Anyhow, just thought I might bring that to you. Bubba Rutherford Land and Cattle, buying and selling these cattle 6 days a week, always closed on Sunday. Y'all have a good day.
You guys, I can't stay quiet about this. The talk about importing more foreign beef to help lower beef prices, that's not the solution. It's the same failed policy that's already hurt rural communities, shrunk our American cow herd, and handed even more control of our food supply to big corporations. Right now, the 4 big packer companies are already importing beef from like 20 different countries, including Argentina. They're allowed to sell that beef right beside American beef without a label telling you the difference in the grocery stores. Without mandatory country of origin labeling laws, you as a consumer have no way to know where your beef came from. And that's exactly how the packers like it. More imports won't fix the problem. They'll make it worse. Every pound of foreign beef that's brought in weakens our own cattle industry and puts our nation's food security further at risk. If you care about keeping America's food supply strong and supporting American ranch families, the best thing you can do is be buying ranch direct. Obviously, we'd love for that to be from us at Diamond H Ranch. But even if it's not from us, find a rancher you trust and support them. When you buy ranch direct, your money is going directly to a hardworking American ranch family, and that's the future of American beef. So buy direct, and even better, take a minute to call or email your senators and representatives, tell them to oppose any increase in beef imports from Argentina, and to stand up for American ranchers. It really does make a difference. Let's put America's cattle industry first. More imports aren't the answer. You are.
Donald Trump has already hurt farmers across the country, either through immigration policies or trade policies, with maybe the exception of corn farmers when he signed off that allows ethanol to be produced at an increased level year-round, including the amount put in our fuel. But now, he's hurting ranchers. And the beef ranchers in this country are notoriously petty. Do you remember when they sued Oprah because she said don't eat red beef? Well, now Donald Trump is planning on buying beef from Argentina to help the ranchers in Argentina and, in his theory and mind, to lower beef prices in the United States. He's going to bring live beef in from Argentina to the U.S. to lower prices.
Oh, this is rich. Import live beef to lower prices, but there's nobody to process it because the workforce got deported. You can't make this up. The same administration that's bringing in foreign cattle also removed the labor force that turns those cattle into the meat people actually buy at stores. So what's the plan here? Hope the beef processes itself? Pray that Americans who spent decades avoiding slaughterhouse work suddenly decide it's appealing? This is policy whiplash. You can't simultaneously deport your processing workforce and increase your import volume. That's not a plan. That's two contradictory impulses happening at the same time. And the people getting crushed? American ranchers watching their market share evaporate while imported cattle sit in holding pens because nobody's around to process them. Meanwhile, consumers still pay high prices because the actual bottleneck never got addressed. This isn't about economics. This isn't about helping anyone. This is about making announcements that sound good without thinking through the second-order effects.
But the problem is there's nobody to process that beef because he has deported all of the workers. The people who worked at the meat processing plants across the country were overwhelmingly immigrants, and overwhelmingly they have left those jobs either on their own to protect themselves and their families, or they've been deported in raids. So I don't know where he's planning on this beef being processed. We don't.
$20 billion sent to Argentina because the conservative policies are flattening their economy and their leader is a grifter, while they've also taken over the international soybean market lost to American farmers due to tariffs. So I'm guessing that the A in MAGA actually stood for Argentina.
Argentina's elections are on Sunday, October 26th. And so obviously we all know that that is why Donald Trump announced the currency exchange to help burst their currency, and now announced that we are going to import beef from Argentina to help prop up their economy. But the key here is that he announced that he was doing those things. Now, I 100% believe that he is going to go through with the currency exchange, because I'm sure that there are people in his pocket that he benefits from going through with that currency exchange. But good news for the cattle farmers, and that is that Donald Trump doesn't care about you, but he probably cares about the Argentinian cattle farmers even less. So I don't normally predict things, but I've got a good feeling based on his history. Remember, he didn't care about investigating Hunter Biden in what led to his first impeachment. He just cared that it was announced, because he understands that announcing things are going to happen in the future moves markets. It moves elections. Donald Trump announced the purchase of beef from Argentina, opening the markets to the Argentinian cattle industry, to move markets, to change Argentines' elections by giving a reason for voters to vote for Donald Trump's colleagues, for Donald Trump's friends, for Donald Trump's authoritarian right-wing leaders that he wants to see in power.
Good afternoon. It is afternoon on this weekend of the Classic. Today is Thursday. I still have a little voice going on here, but I want to get into this here. Texas ranchers and state agriculture commissioner Sid Miller, this is Sid Miller from Texas, warning Trump that he importing beef from Argentina to combat high domestic prices is not the answer. He is a longtime Republican and a Trump ally. And this is what he said: there doesn't need to be a conflict between our beef producers and consumers. He wrote, if we want to lower prices, and we should be importing breed stock to increase our domestic herds, benefiting consumers and producers. It's a rare break with Trump, whose policies are often cheered by Miller, and comes after the president on Sunday told reporters aboard Air Force One that we would be buying some beef in Argentina. Okay, then. The price of beef in the U.S. has risen sharply over the past 3 years, with ground beef selling at $6.32 per pound on average in August, and more than 25% increase, according to the Federal Reserve Bank.
Ground beef up 25% in 3 years. That's real. That's measurable. That's families genuinely struggling. But here's what should make you furious. While regular people are choosing between beef and their other bills, someone's spending $230 million on a ballroom. Let that sink in. $230 million for a party venue, while ranchers are going bankrupt and consumers can't afford hamburger. And sure, maybe it's donor money, maybe it's private funds, but it's still a choice about priorities. It's still a statement about who matters and who doesn't. Because that $230 million could have been direct support for struggling farms, could have been processing infrastructure, could have been anything that actually addresses the problem people are facing. Instead, a ballroom. For what? Photo ops and galas, while rural America collapses? The optics here are devastating. You can't claim you're fighting for working people while building monuments to excess. You can't say you care about farmers while spending construction budgets on luxury spaces they'll never see.
Of St. Louis. So we'll see how that turns out. Also, as you know, President Trump has torn down the East Wing. This is where the First Lady usually has her office, to build a ballroom. Now, according to President Trump, the ballroom is going to is being paid for not by tax dollars, but by him and but by President Trump and some donors, friends of President Trump. Now, I think this is going to cost roughly $230 million. And I bet you those farmers wish they could have someone would have donated or collectively got together to help them out with that $230 million. Now, some people were not happy about the destruction, and other people said, well, other presidents did it. I think President Nixon, he built over a indoor swimming pool, and I think the Kennedys did some remodeling as well. But I don't think anyone has just totally torn down a building. They may have, but I didn't see it. You can let me know. But farmers are kind of scratching their head, rightfully so, don't you think?
Okay, elephant in the room. Everybody's talking about it. No, it's not Group 7. Trump and the cow market and bringing in Argentina beef. We're direct to consumer, so we sell direct to consumer. We have no middlemen in what we do. We are our own preconditioners. We're on feed yard. We do everything. And our pricing structure has been set. It was set 2 years ago. We've been relatively the same the entire time, pretty consistent. And now prime beef in grocery stores has outrun us by $1.50 a pound, if you can find it in the grocery stores. Here, it's always prime. So what sucks for the American rancher is these ranchers that are still going, they've survived floods, they've survived droughts, they've survived wildfires, they've survived crappy cattle markets where you're just barely breaking even. And then trying to hand that down for the future generation and do things different and right. And you finally get a market where you can get ahead a little bit and do some things for the future. You've risked all that to stay in it, and you get a short reward, and then it's yanked out from under you. I understand the fear of that, and that's one of the biggest reasons we did what we did way back in 2016 before COVID ever even happened, was even a thought. And so it sucks for the American rancher if that is the case and what they really try to do. But at the same time, it may not be as much imports as what you think, and it's also not the ranchers are not the ones setting the prices. It's the big four packers. There's a conglomerate that's already paying out because they've been sued for price fixing. So let's start there. And but that's my take on it. And we're still going to be here selling beef. So come see us at 830 West Commerce Street, Brownwood, Texas. You can check us out on www.essential-beef.com. And we do ship across the United States. So y'all have a good day. Eat Brown County beef.
U.S. ranchers oppose Trump's plans to import more Argentine beef, and experts doubt it will lower prices. President Donald Trump's plan to cut record beef prices by importing more meat from Argentina is running into heated opposition from U.S. ranchers who are enjoying some rare profitable years, and skepticism from experts who say the president's move probably wouldn't lead to cheaper prices at grocery stores. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association and other farming groups, who are normally some of the president's biggest supporters, all criticize Trump's idea because of what it could do to American ranchers. Agricultural economists say Argentinian beef accounts for such a small slice of beef imports, only about 2%, that even doubling that wouldn't change prices much. Several factors have sent beef prices soaring, starting with continued strong demand combined with the smallest U.S. herd size since 1961. In part, that small herd is due to years of drought and low cattle prices. Very important to understand the dynamic policies that are driving pricing. Beef pricing is high. And on one hand, you have American ranchers liking that. They're finally charging probably what it actually costs to raise beef. The increased beef prices are being met with very positive review from cattlemen because they're finally starting to make some money on this stuff. I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think the policy should be on this.
So since I've been invited back to the creator program, I have to start posting more. And I already post a lot, but I'm going to have to start posting more, even on my days off. So here we are. And let's talk about it, because you know it's going to be political. That's me, political Shannon. But here's my concern today. And this is actually not really funny. It's actually really fucking concerning. To me anyways. And I'd like to hear from farmers. United States farmers, especially you cattle farmers. How are you feeling after the news today? What's the news, you say? It seems that along with the $40 billion of free money going to Argentina while our country's in the middle of a fucking shutdown, he's going to agree to import 4 times more beef than we already import. 4 times. We can't fucking afford hamburger in this country right now. Hamburger. Not even regular people can make hamburger helper. I don't make hamburger helper, by the way. Never. I don't ever make hamburger helper. But for those people that enjoy hamburger helper, it's like $7 a pound. You're buying a 99-cent box of hamburger helper with $7 worth of beef? And forget steak. What the fuck is that? You're bailing out another fucking country and leaving our farmers here in the United States to fucking rot.
How do you feel, farmers? That's the question, isn't it? Because this is where all the contradictions crash together. $40 billion to Argentina, 4 times more beef imports. Meanwhile, the people who believe they'd be protected are watching their industry disintegrate in real time. And the anger here is justified, not just because of the economic damage, but because of the betrayal. These farmers showed up, they voted, they believed the promises, and now they're being asked to compete against subsidized foreign beef while their own government hands billions to the country, undercutting them. You can't afford hamburger anymore. $7 a pound for ground beef. Steak is a luxury. But somewhere, someone's cutting checks to Argentina and calling it strategy. And here's the brutal question farmers need to ask themselves. Was it worth it? Was the loyalty worth this? Because you can't eat campaign promises. You can't pay your mortgage with slogans. At some point, people need to stop voting based on who makes them feel good and start voting based on who actually helps them survive. Because feelings don't save farms, policy does. And this policy, it's killing them.
How do you feel, farmers? Are you okay? Do you need help? Did you vote for Donald Trump? How's that working out for you? You know what? That's going to be the poll. For farmers. Are you okay with Donald Trump bailing out Argentina and importing 4 times more beef while we can't afford the beef that's in our country currently? Yep. That's where we are. Enjoy.
So I recently made a video talking about how Claudia, the president for Mexico, is destabilizing the farmers and the agriculture workers and basically putting them out of business. She's importing things from Peru and they're selling it at Walmart for crazy prices, like 2-3 times more. And so I got a lot of comments saying, well, Trump is doing the same thing with the beef, importing beef from Argentina. So y'all know I had to do a little bit of research. And so the reason he said he's doing that is because he cannot seem to get the beef prices down, something about there being a shortage of beef and high demand, and the beef prices are just not going down, which I see that for myself. Like every time I go to the store, the steaks, the ground beef, super high. So he said that to combat that, he's going to bring in more beef to make it even and to where the prices of beef can go down, which are leaving the ranchers not too happy. But I guess it's one of those things where he has to choose on who to make happy, the American person, like all the Americans that are struggling with groceries, or the ranchers. So the ranchers aren't happy, but at least the people should be able to afford beef now, is what's his reasoning.
Fair question. Do you sacrifice rancher profits to help families afford groceries? Because beef prices are genuinely crushing people. $7 for ground beef, steak becoming a luxury item. That's real hardship for working families trying to feed kids. But here's the critical distinction. Using imports to temporarily stabilize prices while fixing domestic supply chains is crisis management. Permanently undercutting your own producers to maintain artificially low prices is industry destruction. One is a bridge, the other is a cliff. And if imports are genuinely about helping consumers, prices should drop, visibly, measurably. If beef prices stay elevated even with increased imports, then this was never about helping regular people. It was theater with rural casualties. What needs to happen? Transparent pricing data showing actual impact, clear communication about temporary versus permanent policy, support programs for ranchers navigating this transition, and accountability. If prices don't drop, someone explains why. Right now, it feels like ranchers are being crushed with vague promises that consumers might possibly eventually benefit. That's not policy. That's chaos with a press release.
So when you compare that to what Claudia's doing, it's a whole different case, because the farmers over there are not overcharging. They're just asking for their regular old prices, like nothing crazy. And it would be one thing if she's getting them imported from somewhere else to sell it cheaper to help out the people. But no, the avocados they're selling at Walmart are way higher, and it's bad quality. It's not even anything near like the Mexican avocados. So that's the difference. And whereas Trump is saying that he's doing it to help the Americans to be able to afford groceries. So I don't know. What do y'all think about that? Do y'all think that's true? I mean, hopefully that's the case. If we go to the store and we see the beef prices dropping, then I'm gonna be happy. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be happy. I feel bad for the ranchers. Now, if there's any ranchers that are watching me right now, if you could just help me understand, why are the beef prices so high? Like, what is it? Is it the supplies? Is it because everything's expensive? Like, if y'all can just educate me on why it's so high, would be nice. Do y'all think that that's the right solution? If not, what do y'all think is another solution? Do y'all think that he's just low-key trying to do the whole New World Order of destabilizing America with the food? But yeah, I hate to see that the ranchers are going to take a big hit. Hopefully it's not a big hit though, because I'm sure there's still a lot of Americans that would rather buy beef from United States. So if that's you, make sure that you support your local ranchers, go to the local meat markets. I'm sure y'all still going to have a big market of people that would want to stick to United States meat. So, those people could buy it there, and then the other people that can't afford it can still buy it at the store. So hopefully it's a solution in a perfect world. Hopefully it's a solution for everybody. But like I said, if all that meat comes over here and the prices stay the same or go up, then that's a problem.
So here's where we land. American ranchers are trapped, crushed between processing monopolies, climate chaos, and now foreign competition flooding their market, all while being told it's for everyone's benefit. Maybe cheaper beef helps more people than it hurts, but broken promises and sudden policy shifts after years of loyalty? That's not governance, that's betrayal. The lesson: economic promises are only as valuable as the people making them, and when those promises conflict with political convenience, regular people get crushed. Ranchers bet on protectionism, on policies that would shield them. Now they're learning what happens when ideology hits economic reality. Vote on policy, not slogans. Because "I'll fight for you" means nothing when the fighting starts and you're not in the ring. Drop a comment. Should ranchers get help, Or is this just markets being markets? Hit subscribe. The collision between politics and economics isn't stopping. This has been Mind Mirror.